Okay, lesson 1. Ahimsa. The foundation of yoga is not asana. The foundation of yoga is a set of moral principles. Yama and niyama. Now, why do we need yama and niyama? Well, the reason why it was so important to talk about energy first and the importance of harmony is because it explains why we need moral principles. There are 5 yamas: the Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, and Aparigraha, which is Sanskrit, but that means non-violence, non-lying or truthfulness, non-stealing, chastity, and non-desire. The 5 yamas explain basically natural human behavior. It is natural to instinctively react with violence, to lie, to steal, to follow your desires. But although it is natural and it is only human, it leads to disruption all the time. So the ancient yogis quickly realized that if we just allow our instinctive behavior, subconscious behavior to control our lives, we will always be suffering. We will never have harmony or sattva in our lives. And because harmony is not just a luxury, but actually has real implications, positive benefits enormously, there must be a way to eliminate, or at least an attempt to eliminate, every element in our lives that causes disharmony. And it starts with how we subconsciously function. If I'm in a situation where something makes me angry and I don't pay attention, I will just react. But I don't know how you feel after a conflict, after you shout at somebody, or even fight with somebody. It feels terrible afterwards. It doesn't matter who is right and who is wrong. It's terrible. Why? Because there is a huge disruption in you. I have to recover several days if I allow myself to get angry in a situation, driving a car or in the street when people are nasty. So when you realize how disruptive that is, you realize that it would be nice if you could avoid it. How do you avoid it? First of all, consciousness. Second, is more difficult, I think, is that you must do effort to control. Now, yoga practitioners, those principles we call universal laws. Why are they called universal laws? Because every human being has them in their heart. It's just that circumstances do not allow us to live in accordance with them. It is circumstances that cause us to become violent. But they are natural laws. And we know this because every person who starts practicing yoga, before studying about Yama, already naturally, subconsciously even, starts to implement these principles in their daily life. Yoga practitioners, without studying about Yama, naturally become friendlier, nicer, less angry and aggressive, because you become more harmonious. The reason why we need to study about this is because that natural development is very easily disturbed. Just because other people have their own activities that can disrupt you, that can cause you to become angry or otherwise disrupted. It is important to understand that violence begets violence. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword. That is a very old expression. If you're a person who goes through life ready to kill somebody, don't be surprised that one day somebody will kill you. That is what the expression means. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword. Violence can occur. If I punch you, clearly that is violence, right? So we understand physical violence and we understand verbal violence. But there is a more subtle form of violence that is violence in thought. So if I punch you, you will want to punch me back. But when that happens, it escalates. So you try to control. If I am verbally violent, I shout, I call you bad names, you will want to shout back at me. You think you have a right to do so, and actually you do have a right. Except that right comes with a high price. And that price is disruption of your peace of mind. So although you have a right, it's better to try to control yourself because you preserve your harmony, your peace of mind. Mental violence is a whole different thing because people think that it doesn't affect others. If I have a negative thought, a thought of anger or hate, which many people do, I do it too, I'm only human, that you look at somebody and you have a feeling of anger or disgust or some kind of negative sentiment, you think that other people don't notice. But people do notice. When you have a thought of anger, subconsciously, unknowingly, people pick up on that feeling of anger because they feel your vibration. They feel your aggressive or negative vibration. So, although physically and verbally you didn't do anything, they may react in a nasty way to you just because they picked up your sentiment, your thought. Now, what is this about? This is about taking responsibility for the things that happen in life without always blaming others. Because if I just have a violent thought, but I didn't pronounce it verbally and I didn't act physically, then somebody will shout at me or punch me. Then I will say, I am innocent. I didn't do anything wrong. So I'm the victim. But now I notice there is a pattern in life. It happens again and again. I'm a person, I have lots of violent thoughts, negative thoughts, but I never pronounce them. I never express them. But I see there is a pattern in my life that I constantly encounter people who are angry at me for no reason. Because I think they don't know that I am being negative or violent in my thoughts. So this is important to connect the dots, to see the pattern. Because our first instinct is to blame people. We say, why are they so nasty to me? Why are they treating me like this? I didn't do anything wrong, except you did. Because your thoughts were out there. The problem with all this is we are only human. And a lot of our functioning is subconscious. We're not even aware of what we are doing internally. We're not even aware of our thoughts that can affect other people, making them react in a negative way. That is what this is about. That we start becoming conscious of it, that we start observing next time when we find ourselves in a conflictuous situation, that we actually realize that there is something that triggered it, and that might actually be something inside us. And it works both ways. You may find yourself in the subway or in the supermarket or at home with your partner, and your partner or the person in the subway has a violent thought towards you. And anger starts to rise in you. And you want to punch that person in the face or shout at that person. Now you know how it works. That person didn't say anything, didn't do anything, and yet there is this anger in you, that violence in you. It's all about being aware. Try to be aware of this next time. This is your homework for the rest of the week. Just try to acknowledge, try to recognize in daily life situations, at home, in the street, in the supermarket, in the bus, the subway, the car, how your mind is functioning. The only way to learn to control that is the first step is by becoming conscious of it. So that is what Yama is about. Yama is about installing and preserving harmony, because harmony is our precious treasure. Harmony is our precious capital. When there is harmony, everything flourishes, everything thrives, everything goes well. When there is disharmony, disruption, everything goes wrong. So again, spirituality, harmony is not a luxury. It has huge implications in our happiness, our well-being, our success or failure depends on it. Everything basically depends on it. You will also notice when you find yourself confronted by a violent person, you will notice that I mentioned it just before already. There is something inside you that tells you you have a right to react, right? Because that person deserves it. The thing is, it's true. You have a right. But the problem is the price that you pay is so high in the form of disruption, disharmony. So, why do we think we have a right to react when somebody is aggressive or violent? That is because of ego. Ego makes us think that we should do something. I have to stand up for myself, for my right, that is ego at work. But the problem is it leads to so much disruption. It would be better if we could control that. And if you are familiar with spirituality and spiritual circles, you know that ego is a many discussed subject. And throughout this course, I will do everything I can to help you understand ego in a practical way, because most people don't really understand what ego really means, how it manipulates us in so many ways. The other side of the coin is that if you can control your ego, which means that you can control your urge to react in kind with aggression, for example. First you may feel sad because you think you have a right, but then when the situation is over, it feels so good that you were able to control yourself. It's so satisfying that you were able to not give in to the instinct to just react in kind. So there is a reward there. If you follow ego, yes, you have a right, but there is a punishment. If you can control ego, and in spite of the fact that you do have a right to react, but if you can control that instinct, it's so rewarding. There is a reward. And who doesn't like that? So Yama and Niyama are designed not to become superior to other people. That is something that you find very often in spiritual groups, is that people think they are better than others. Not true. This is nonsense. Yama and Niyama, for that matter, is not for us to be superior to other people and the other people being inferior. It's to improve ourselves, the quality of our lives, the quality of our functioning. It increases happiness and health and well-being. Well, on page 2 there's something about karma. Everybody knows about karma. I think it's obvious. If I do something aggressive, I create karma. And karma will come back in the form of aggression because I acted in an aggressive way. But the good news is that karma can also work in a positive way. If I act in a kind way, if I act in a constructive way, if I act in a positive way, good karma will come to me. And this is at the end of the course, from lesson 31 until lesson 39, we will very deeply talk about this. Because if you feel miserable about life, if you feel miserable about how people treat you, there's something you can do about that. All you have to do is change negativity for positivity. When you do negative things, the world around you will act and react to you in a negative way. That is the law of karma. But it works the other way around too. That is the good news. If you start acting in positive ways, in kind ways, friendly ways, then positive and kind and friendly things will start happening to you. So it's all in our hands. We are the masters of our own destiny. The problem is we have to do effort for it. And that is something most people are not capable of doing. First and foremost because they don't understand how it works. But second also, it means you have to constantly tiptoe. Walk on eggshell. You have to constantly pay attention, and sometimes you're just distracted and then things go wrong. So this is a very interesting journey within our subconscious functioning, and it makes subconscious conscious. You turn darkness into light. You turn ignorance into wisdom. It's an amazing process, and all you have to do is yoga. Questions about Ahimsa? Oh, last page is about, well, it starts with haste is a form of violence. And it's about coming late. Why is this important? Because coming late is very disruptive for you and for the people that are waiting for you. But this is not about other people, this is about you or me. I, personally, I'm never late. I always leave home too early. I always arrive at my destination too early. Why? I do that very consciously. Because I want to be in peace. If I leave home early, I don't have to feel stressed about being late. That I have to run to the bus or the subway. Or worse, I'm driving my car and I'm honking my horn everywhere because people have to go out of the way now. Pali pali. My peace of mind is totally scattered, destroyed as a result of that. So already 30, 40 years ago already I started functioning like that. Always too early, never too late. Also, if you go to a place where you haven't been before, it allows you a little bit of time to familiarize yourself with the environment. If you have an apartment at the Kyobo building, for example, you've never been there, you take the bus or the subway, you get off, you have some time to look around, just to savor, to be at ease. You go into the lobby, you look at the offices and what have you, the restaurants. You can just look around a little bit, familiarize yourself a little bit before you actually meet the person you have an appointment with. It's all about peace of mind. Now, why is this part of non-violence? Because haste is a form of violence to yourself. Every time you're late, your mind is racing. It makes you restless, it makes you worried, but you do it subconsciously, so you don't even notice. Also, coming late is a habit. There are people who are always late, and there are people who are always in time. I see you laughing, but you know, I noticed in 2015, from 2008 until 2015, 2007 until 2015, I had my yoga studio here in World Gym, next to 63 building. In 2015, I moved for 1 year. I moved to Gwangamun in the Seoul Financial Center. Yeah, SFC, Seoul Financial Center. There was a gym in the basement. I had, for 1 year, I had my classes there. Then after that, I moved to Yangjae for 6 months. But this is what happened. The people that were in the advanced course is 1.5 years, so when we moved, the basic course finished, but the advanced course continued in another place with the same students. So we were in Yoido, and there were like 2 or 3 students. They're always late. Not a little bit, but always 15, 20 minutes late. So this is not about me, that it disrupts the class, this is about consciousness. That's why I'm telling you this. If you're late, fine. That is not my problem, actually. But try to understand how it works. So we moved to Gwangamun. The first class that we had in Gwangamun, they arrived in time. They were too early. So I said, what happened? You're always late, and today you came early. They said, yeah, we didn't know exactly. It's closer by, and the transport is just quicker and easier. And you know what happened, the second class? They were late 20 minutes again. Subconsciously, people who are always late, subconsciously, they find ways to procrastinate, to postpone the moment that they leave home. It's calculated, but not deliberate. So I'm not accusing anybody of bad behavior, or we're talking about sattva, about peace of mind, and also responsibility, of course, because it does disturb other people that arrive in time. I'm telling you this because it's a form of violence, but it's disruptive for yourself. It disturbs your peace of mind. And if you are interested in peace of mind, you practice yoga, but that alone is not enough. You also have to try to make some adjustments to certain habits that you have that actually cause disharmony, disruption. So that is what it is about. And it is just very interesting. That's why I'm talking about this with a smile. That is actually, there is this little man or woman inside your head, this little person in your head that is whispering things in your ears, telling you, oh, it's okay, just do like this, and I'll just, leave a little bit later. You know that it's actually not, but you're not aware of that person inside your head telling you these kind of things. And that is, we try to become conscious of all of these kind of things. That is what this is about. Anyway. And finally, violence can be recognized through pain, which can be very subtle. Now this is important, and we will come back to it later, reading the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. But when we think of pain, we think of, real physical pain. When you bump your head into the door frame, or just, physical pain. Pain that is really obvious. Headache, or the pain of a breakup in a relationship, that is also heartbreak, it's also very painful. But in yoga, 95% of pain is not considered by most people as pain, because it is very subtle. So you recognize violence through pain. But pain can just be a slight feeling of unease. We live in a world where it doesn't count. It doesn't count as a disruption. It doesn't count as a form of violence. But it is. Just the slightest mental disruption, feeling of unease, some doubt, that in yoga, these are simply signals that tell you something is not right. And we can make life so much better for ourselves and the people around us, our loved ones, if we start to acknowledge especially the subtle forms of pain. Because every emotion, every disruption, even the slightest form of discomfort is simply a signal that tells us something is wrong, or something needs to be paid attention to, something needs to be addressed. We grew up in a world where we did not learn that skill. It is one of the reasons why we are facing conflict all the time, because the conflict itself is an outburst. But before that conflict occurred, many small disruptions have already taken place that we didn't recognize. We didn't see it. We only see it once it is a full-blown conflict, a full-blown situation. This means if you develop the insight in those little signals, you can completely avoid the big situation. It's the same as with disease. Cancer, I'm talking about extreme disease. Cancer kills people. But cancer does not come cancer does not come on a clear blue sky. It's not something that occurs suddenly. Cancer starts 20, 30 years ago. And during all those years, there are small discomforts, there are small signals, there are small symptoms that we don't understand, so we just ignore them. Now, disease is progressive. Disease is a warning. If you look at it from a yoga point of view, or from a traditional medicine point of view, disease is telling us something is not right. In the same way that a form of pain, discomfort, unease is telling us something is not right. But it starts with subtle signals. All diseases start with subtle signals. When we ignore the subtle signal, the next signal is a little bit bigger. We ignore that one too, the next one will be a little bit bigger. And the longer we ignore, the more severe the signal. And the final step is that it's a lethal disease. The final step is that it kills you. So, what yoga wants us to do more and more is start paying attention to the little things. Start paying attention to the subtle signals. Because it can help you to avoid the bigger things. The bigger conflicts, the bigger diseases, the bigger misery and suffering can be avoided if only we would detect the smaller signals, the subtle signals. We are not trained or educated to recognize those, but for the purpose of yoga, it's important that more and more we start paying attention. Because if something feels off, something is off. It means that you must do something about it. If you don't, it will just get worse. It's not only with disease, it's also in relationships. Relationships escalate in the same way disease does, if we ignore the subtle signals. So this is of essential importance in our further development. Questions about Ahimsa? There's time for asana, maybe just a couple of minutes break.